their shoulders and presented me. That's how I became the leader on that day. And I began, and on that day, I set the stage for progression toward the Quran.
And what was like the time frame from that progression to you completely severed the connection with the Nation of Islam?
It took years. It took many years. It took at least about 10 or 12 years, yes, before, and then I established my own office. I didn't want to be tied to the Temple of Islam as a leader. I wanted to be free to represent the following of the Temple of Islam, but not be myself. Under the Temple of Islam as a concept, because I knew it was a Bible concept. It was not an Islamic concept.
Right, and the majority of the people, I think, you know, at a certain point, accepted your leadership, and there were a few people remaining behind who wanted to stay with the old concepts and beliefs. So what was that like, and how did that split really become apparent?
You know, it didn't manifest until about 3 years later that they were dissatisfied with my leadership. It manifested only when Minister Farrakhan came to me and he said, I've gone along with you for this time, he said, but I see our youngsters, our children going back to the streets. None of my children went back to the street, but he said, I see our children going to the streets. He said, and I see you discrediting your father, he said, I have to go back and establish the Nation of Islam again. So I said, well, that's okay with me. If that's what you want to do. I said, don't expect any trouble from me. Because if you knew the mindset of the FOI, the Nation of Islam, you would understand him being a little afraid. And after all, he was threatened by a big, strong minister in the East Coast, on the East Coast, Philadelphia. In fact, the one that was the minister over the Temple of Islam that I was sent to head before I was in prison. This man was a very powerful man. You know, he had strong brothers behind him, and he was known to hurt people if they got in his way. So Minister Farrakhan was threatened by that brother, and that's why he was in Chicago with me. I didn't call him. I didn't ask for him to come to Chicago like many of the followers thought. They thought, oh, he brought him from New York so he wouldn't be effective there to weaken him. No, I was told that his life was threatened, and national headquarters asked me if they could have him come to Chicago to assist me there. So he did, and I told him to set up a temple on the west side, but he never did. He chose to go back to the Caribbean. And he went there and Bermuda and somewhere. I mean, I think it was Bermuda and a few other places in the Caribbean. And then finally, he came back to Chicago. But as an independent, not as my assistant.
But Imam, let me ask you, just in terms of Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam today, I mean, maybe you know more than the average person of what's taking place now in the Nation of Islam.
Because a lot of it happened to me.
But can you just maybe share with us a bit of what you know about what's taking place today in the Nation of Islam and the handing over the reins of Farrakhan to a management committee? What do you know about that, and is it a good move taking place there?
Yes. Well, looking at Farrakhan's leadership, naturally we have serious problems with it, you know. But when I look at where he started with the concept of the Nation of Islam that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing away with. Now that's what Farrakhan didn't tell anybody. He won't tell his following that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad himself, at his last annual address, he pointed to a white man sitting on the stage behind him, up in the bleachers. He said, "That's a white man," speaking to the audience. He said, "He's a Muslim." He said, "If the white man can change his treatment by you, that you change your treatment of him, your treatment of him." And he appealed very strongly. He even used the language, the touching language. He said, "I'm speaking to you from the heart, from my heart," he said. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had really over a period of several years, really, he had been conditioning us to not behave as we behaved when the white man was brutal and when his law was against us, our citizenship, you know. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as things changed for us to be accepted in white America, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also modified his teachings.
So you think that when your father freed you to go and speak in the temples again, he knew the direction you were going to take?
He most certainly did. And all of his ministers, that's how come I had support. The strong ministers were more popular because they had larger followings. They were all told by my father at different occasions, practically all during my life as a teenager, and when I came into the ministry when I was about 17 or 18, they knew that my father allowed me to preach differently. I didn't have to preach like they preached. And one complained at the table when he was meeting with his staff. He said, "Dear Holy Apostle," they referred to my father like that sometimes. The "Dear Holy Apostle," say, "Your son, he doesn't preach like we do. He doesn't teach like we do. Or teach, pardon me. He doesn't teach like we do." My father said, "Yes, I know him." Said, "Well, he's not to teach the Bible. So he's to teach the Quran." That's what my father said. His exact words.
So when I was asking you about the direction of the Nation of Islam, do you see that there's going to be a change in the belief system now, or have you heard that there's been some movement in that direction which is going to seriously take place soon?
Yes. Minister Farrakhan has made progress for the Nation of Islam. Given the concept that existed originally, Minister Farrakhan has made progress for it. Yes. So I appreciate the progress that he has made, and many of us, we appreciate the progress that he made for the Nation of Islam to bring his following to accept Christians, to accept blacks and who are Christians, and to say that religion is for everybody. At least to say that no, that's not the